Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books in Bytes. Today we're taking a deep dive into an absolutely monumental work, Andrew Roberts Churchill, Walking with Destiny. Now this isn't just another biography, it's Roberts' really profound exploration of one of history's most compelling figures. It traces Winston Churchill's journey, from that premature birth right through to his final momentous years. Our mission today really is to give you a shortcut to understanding the defining moments, the surprising insights, and maybe the deep convictions that shaped this man who, well, truly believed his entire life was a preparation for one crucial hour.
Indeed. And Roberts presents a Churchill who was just full of contradictions, wasn't he? You have this self-confident adventurer who was also often moved to tears, a meticulous writer, yet he thrived on action, a fierce politician, yes, but capable of deep loyalty, and a strategic thinker who genuinely learned from every setback. So throughout this deep dive, we'll follow that chronological arc of his life. We'll examine how his early experiences, his formidable intellect, forged the warrior at heart he always believed himself to be, and how his personal journey just intersected with and, well, often steered the course of global events.
Okay, so let's unpack this right from the very beginning. Roberts opens with Churchill's quite dramatic entry into the world. Born 6 weeks premature, Blenheim Palace, November 1874. His mother, Jenny Jerome, had a fall, so it was a worrying start, though his father, Lord Randolph Churchill, apparently found him wonderably pretty.
Yes, and what Roberts really emphasizes here is that even though Winston never actually lived at Blenheim, the sheer sort of grandeur of the place, the legacy of his ancestor, the first Duke of Marlborough, it just seeped into him.
So it gave him that sense of being part of something big, historically speaking.
Exactly. A grand lineage. It's key, Roberts argues, to understanding that lifelong sense of destiny he carried.
And that sense of destiny was also deeply connected to his father, wasn't it, Lord Randolph?
Deeply. Lord Randolph, a controversial but brilliant conservative MP, died tragically young. But Roberts highlights how Winston really absorbed his father's Tory democracy, which is this, well, fascinating political idea. It tried to merge traditional conservative things like imperialism with a more progressive focus on social reform, appealing directly to ordinary people.
Right, and that slogan, trust the people.
Yes, that wasn't just a catchphrase for Lord Randolph. It became a guiding principle, something Winston would echo right through his own career.
And Roberts shows Churchill had this resilience, even as a kid. Serious illnesses, like that bad pneumonia in Brighton.
Nearly died, yeah. But despite, his later sort of jokes about being bad at school, Robert shows he was actually remarkably bright, excelled in history, memorized poetry.
The Macaulay Prize, reciting 1,200 lines, and correcting masters on Shakespeare.
Exactly. It wasn't just showing off. Roberts argues this was the foundation for his legendary speaking style. He credits a schoolmaster, Somerville, with teaching him the essential structure of the ordinary British sentence. Quite a thing to learn.
It really is. And what about that early premonition? That's astonishing.
Isn't it? At just 17, telling a friend in 1891, he foresaw great upheavals, terrible struggles, wars such as one cannot imagine, and London will be attacked, and I shall be very prominent in the defense of London.
Wow.
Yeah.
Roberts really stresses this wasn't just, teenage ambition. It was an uncanny prescience. And this deep self-belief, it allowed Churchill to take risks, make unpopular stands later on. He saw a future others just couldn't see. His relationship with his mother, Jenny, was complex too, often separated, but Roberts shows it was deeply emotional through letters. And his father's death just devastated him, left him utterly prostrate with grief. And Roberts notes, almost luckily for his political career, his father dying as an MP meant Winston didn't get a peerage.
Exactly. Which would have kept him out of the House of Commons, where he really made his mark.
So this conviction, this sense of destiny, it clearly fuels his adventurous side, leading him to the military.
Straight into it. Roberts details his early adventures, Cuba in 1895. He actively sought danger, lobbied for postings on expeditions. Now, some contemporaries saw him as a bit of a thrusting self-advertiser, a medal hunter. But Roberts argues he always moved towards mortal danger rather than away from them. And this relentless pursuit of action, combined with this incredible drive to write, it shaped his views, yes, but it also paid the bills.
The financial struggles, that comes through strongly.
Oh, yes, he told his mother quite bluntly, "We are damned poor." Roberts suggests this pressure was a big part of why he wrote so much. Publishing the story of the Malacan Field Force in 1898 was a huge boost. Excellent reviews, Roberts says, and 2 years' pay.
And full of those classic Churchill lines like, nothing in life is so exhilarating as to be shot at without result.
Precisely. And it also gives you a glimpse into his early, pretty blunt views on things like religious extremism. Then his time in the Sudan, Omdurman, getting lost for 70 miles, finding his way by the stars, Orion.
Probably saved his life, Robert suggests.
Probably did. And witnessing the aftermath, the killing of wounded dervishes. Roberts thinks this really solidified his self-confidence, his ability to compartmentalize, to not let criticism get under his skin personally.
So a real crucible, those early years, forging the man ready for public life. He enters the Commons in 1900.
Yeah, seeing it, as Roberts puts it, as a theater, a place for men to reveal their character and personality.
And his maiden speech made waves, partly because he gave it to the press beforehand. Clever.
Very clever. Celebrated the empire, paid tribute to his father. But he quickly started challenging his own party, didn't he?
Advocating for a strong navy above all.
Fiercely. Saw it as the ultimate guarantee of British power.
And Roberts points out this interesting development around then his growing social conscience.
Yes, influenced by Roundtree's study on poverty, leading him to write that famous line, "I see little glory in an empire which can rule the waves and is unable to flush its sewers."
Which sounds quite radical, but you're saying Roberts connects it back to his father's ideas.
Exactly. Back to that Tory democracy. Not a sudden break, but an evolution bridging these seemingly opposite political ideas. He had that capacity.
That flexibility certainly led to fireworks over tariff reform.
Oh, absolutely. A huge battle within the Unionist Party, basically. Protectionism versus free trade. And Churchill, with that sharp wit, just skewers the party leader, Balfour, for sitting on the fence, famously saying his front bench was ready to die for the truth if they only knew what the truth was.
Ouch. And that led to the mass walkout of Tory MPs.
Over 200 of them. Roberts calls it the highest tribute ever paid to a parliamentary orator. Quite something.
And ultimately led to him crossing the floor in 1904, joining the Liberals.
Yes. And Roberts gives us that great anecdote, him sitting next to David Lloyd George, who he initially called a vulgar, chattering little cad.
But they became friends.
Great friends. Roberts really emphasizes Churchill's extraordinary ability to separate politics from personal friendship. A rare skill. And his opposition to the Aliens Bill around that time, restricting Jewish immigration, Roberts sees this as evidence of his lifelong fellow Semite stance, a progressive stance for the time.
And then the 1906 election, the Liberal landslide, he saw it as vindication for his father.
He did. The vindication of my father's life, Roberts quotes him saying.
So it really gets interesting here. Roberts shows this political journey wasn't straight at all. Battling his own side, social reform, switching parties. He wasn't afraid to make waves or enemies.
Not at all. Always evolving.
Yeah.
And that conviction gets tested even more when he becomes First Lord of the Admiralty 1911 to 1915. He was a huge advocate for air power, setting up the Royal Naval Air Service. Still juggling those personal finances, though, that hand-to-mouth situation.
And his strategic thinking really comes to the fore here. Quoting Clausewitz.
Overpowering strength at the decisive point. And his loyalty to friends, like helping Lloyd George in the Marconi scandal. But also that independent streak. Roberts talks about him publicly offering naval de-escalation to Germany in 1913.
While privately demanding more dreadnoughts.
Exactly. Roberts says it was no hypocrisy, just, well, a dual approach. Diplomacy backed by clear-eyed preparation for war, which he felt was inevitable.
Which, of course, it was. World War I breaks out. Churchill is right in the thick of it.
Plunges in, sets up the Royal Naval Division. Many friends served and died there, which Roberts notes weighed on him. His foresight was uncanny, predicting the Battle of the Marne happening on the 40th day of the war.
And that offer to resign and lead the relief of Antwerp. Met with laughter.
Homeric laughter, Roberts says, from the cabinet. Laughter that wouldn't last long, given what was coming.
But then, the Dardanelles. Roberts doesn't pull punches here.
No, he doesn't. Churchill's most controversial moment. Driven by, well, initial over-optimism, thinking he could do it without the army, underestimating modern mines and defenses.
A disaster that cost him his job at the Admiralty in 1915.
Forced resignation, yes. A condition for the Conservatives joining the coalition government. Roberts paints it as a profoundly humbling, shattering experience for him.
But Roberts also shows a different side afterwards. Vulnerability.
Yes, surprisingly so. He found solace, therapy almost, in painting. Famously said, "If it weren't for painting, I could not live." But crucially, Roberts argues, he learned lessons from Gallipoli, realized the need for proper joint planning, a single prolonged conference between chiefs, and he vowed never again to overrule his professional military advisors in that way.
He even went to the trenches himself after that.
He did, 1915-16. Found a kind of blessed peace there, believe it or not. Calmly described the dangers, formed lifelong friendships, like with Archie Sinclair.
So this really poses the question. How does this man, publicly humiliated over Gallipoli, often seen as erratic, especially in the wilderness years of the 30s, how does he end up leading the nation in its darkest hour?
That's the core question, isn't it? And Robert's answer is clear. It was those unwavering convictions. Even when deeply unpopular, they formed the bedrock. Despite the isolation, some colleagues calling him a public menace, he kept speaking out, delivered that torrent of speeches. He was always a force they could never ignore.
And Roberts connects his deep dive into history, writing the Marlborough biography, with his warnings about Germany.
Absolutely. That historical perspective fueled his prescient warnings about German rearmament all through the 1930s. Warnings often met with derisive laughter in Parliament. But Roberts makes that crucial point.
That people remembered he'd made the speeches, even if they hadn't listened at the time.
Exactly. One of the reasons why Churchill became prime minister in 1940 was that although few had heeded his speeches, many others remembered that he had made them. He was preparing, even subconsciously, for that destiny.
His isolation must have been intense, though.
Profound, yet the convictions held firm. Roberts details his almost lone opposition to giving up the Irish treaty ports in '38, a decision Roberts says was proven right by wartime losses, and then Munich, Churchill's stark assessment, a defeat without a war.
And that warning. This is only the beginning of the reckoning.
Unless by a supreme recovery of moral health and martial vigor, we arise again and take our stand for freedom as in the olden time. Powerful stuff. Caused uproar in his own constituency, but it was his truth.
So when the crisis finally breaks, September 39, his return to the Admiralty feels like destiny fulfilled.
It really does. Roberts describes it as coming home. And his leadership style was instantly different. Direct, probing, energetic, like putting a bomb under Whitehall, constantly urging, driving, probing.
His speeches became vital, a real tonic.
Absolutely. Pitch-perfect performances. He refused Hitler's peace offers, driven by that historical conviction. Nations that fight on rise again, those that surrender are finished.
And this conviction leads to those iconic wartime speeches. Blood, toil, tears, and sweat.
A true clarion call, Roberts calls it, thrilled listeners, and then we shall fight on the beaches.
Which reportedly sent shivers down spines.
You can imagine that Homeric laughter about Antwerp was long forgotten. Now he was leading the forces. Roberts is clear, though, while he considered extreme measures, like maybe using mustard gas on invasion beaches.
There were private doubts behind the public certainty.
Oh, yes. Admitting to colleagues, you and I will be dead in 3 months' time. But publicly, absolute defiance.
So Roberts paints this picture of a wartime leader who's not just a symbol, but dynamic, flawed, but incredibly effective, driven by belief in Britain's destiny.
Definitely. And Roberts notes his sharp critiques, like of U.S. naval readiness at Pearl Harbor, and how he used private audiences with the king to vent frustrations, especially with U.S. policy, shows his independence.
Even when facing health issues, depression, he wouldn't be deterred.
No. That famous story of an aide telling him he couldn't possibly resign, by God, sir, you cannot do that. His focus remained absolute.
Roberts also highlights his strategic patience, even when he seemed to be waffling.
Yeah, sometimes his lengthy arguments, especially with the Americans or his own chiefs, were seen that way. But Roberts argues it was often a calculated approach, designed to secure British interests, to bring the U.S. fully into the European theater, requiring extraordinary patience and skill. And Roberts also points out that consistent thread his commitment to a Jewish national home in Palestine. It runs right through.
As the war nears its end, Yalta, 1945, Roosevelt's health is failing.
Visibly declining, Roberts notes, which affected that easy understanding between the leaders. But Churchill still delivered that powerful eulogy for Lloyd George, praising qualities he clearly admired, maybe saw in himself that power to live in the present yet without taking short views.
Roosevelt's death shortly after must have hit him hard.
Roberts says he was much weakened in every way by this loss, recognized Roosevelt's immeasurable help. Then VE Day, May 45, that broadcast announcing Germany's surrender, calling it your victory to the crowds.
And they roared back, "No, it's yours!"
Incredible moment. But even then, Churchill's looking ahead. Worried about the Soviets, ordering contingency plans for a potential conflict, a square deal for Poland.
Yet he predicted his own election defeat in 45.
He did, and Roberts shows his philosophical acceptance when Labour won, drawing parallels with Marlborough, seeing defeat as part of a grand historical theme. But even out of office, he's still shaping history. That Iron Curtain speech in Fulton, Missouri in 46 defined the Cold War.
Roberts also mentions his grief over the end of the British Empire in India.
Deep grief, yes. But alongside that, his vision for a united Europe, Britain as a friend and sponsor, but not an integral part. Very forward-thinking. And of course, that classic definition of democracy, the worst form of government except all those other forms that have been tried. Pure Churchill.
Roberts really concludes by reinforcing Churchill's self-view, doesn't he? Not competing with his father, but magnifying his ideas.
Exactly. Seeing himself as the last great practitioner of the historic theme of England's providential destiny. His humor stayed, even in old age, despite serious health scares, and that unwavering devotion to Clementine.
So connecting it all, Roberts presents this life as just, a powerful story of self-belief, resilience, and that profound sense of historical purpose.
Absolutely. He used everything, his experiences, his speaking gifts, his strategic mind to navigate immense challenges, personal and global.
What an extraordinary journey through a truly destiny-driven life. From that premature birth at Blenheim to the walk with destiny defining his premiership, Roberts Churchill walking with destiny is just such a vivid reminder that conviction, even deeply unpopular conviction, can carve its own path through history.
Indeed. And he learned from mistakes, Roberts shows that, often with surprising honesty. But he never lost sight of his core beliefs or his fierce loyalty. His life was, in so many ways, just an act of sheer will, shaped by that mix of intellect and a really deep emotional core.
So for you, our listener, what stands out from this deep dive into Roberts Churchill walking with destiny? Maybe it's the sheer power of that unwavering self-belief, or maybe the incredible volume of writing he produced even during global crises. Perhaps it's those quiet moments of despair behind the public defiance we talked about, or the profound lifelong influence of his father. And it does raise a question, doesn't it? In our world today, often craving instant consensus, maybe following fleeting trends, could a figure as profoundly independent, as stubbornly self-assured, as deeply rooted in history as Winston Churchill emerge again? Something to think about. We hope this deep dive has given you a useful shortcut to being well-informed about this colossal figure and maybe sparked an aha moment or two. Thank you for joining us.